Carrie moved to Atlanta in the spring. She wanted a fresh start. After years of working in a small town, she hoped a new city would bring new chances and new friends. She found a small apartment near a quiet park and started her work as a freelance graphic designer. It was not easy at first. She missed her family and the familiar places she grew up with. Still, she was determined to make things work. One Saturday afternoon, Carrie went to a neighborhood barbecue. She didn't know many people yet, but she wanted to meet her neighbors. The smell of grilled food and sound of laughter filled the air. People were talking and playing music, and kids ran around the yard. Carrie felt a little shy, but she smiled and joined a small group near the grill. There she met Malcolm, a tall man with a calm voice and kind eyes. He was talking to a few friends, but stopped when he saw Carrie. He introduced himself with a warm handshake. Carrie noticed he had a little boy with him, about 2 years old, who was playing quietly by his side. "This is Jordan," Malcolm said, kneeling down to ruffle his son's hair. Jordan looked up and smiled shyly at Carrie. She smiled back and crouched down to say hello. Jordan took her hand and held it for a moment. Malcolm and Carrie started talking. They shared stories about their lives, their jobs, and their favorite music. They both loved old soul records and jazz. The conversation felt easy and natural, like they had known each other for years. Carrie was surprised at how comfortable she felt with Malcolm. Over the next few weeks, Carrie and Malcolm kept running into each other around the neighborhood. They started having coffee together and sometimes took Jordan to the park. Carrie loved spending time with Jordan. She found herself playing games with him, reading him stories, and helping with his little homework. Malcolm never asked Carrie to stay or live with him. He didn't say it out loud, but she felt welcome in their small family. It was different from anything she had known before. She was not just a visitor. She was becoming part of their daily lives. One evening, Malcolm invited Carrie to dinner at his house. It was a cozy place filled with photos of Jordan growing up. Carrie noticed the care Malcolm took to keep the home warm and welcoming. They laughed over pasta and talked late into the night about their dreams and fears. Carrie thought about how much she had changed since arriving in Atlanta. She was no longer just a new face in a big city. She was part of a family, even if it was not a traditional one. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she belonged. As Jordan fell asleep that night, Carrie sat quietly in the living room. She watched Malcolm clean up and felt a quiet hope in her heart. Maybe, she thought, this was the new beginning she had been looking for. Maybe here she could stay, not just for a little while, but for a long time. After that night, Carrie started spending more time at Malcolm's house. What began as a few visits a week slowly turned into something more. She helped with Jordan's morning routine, making breakfast, packing his school bag, and driving him to daycare. Malcolm worked long hours, so Carrie's help made life easier for him. Neighbors began to notice Carrie's presence. Some asked if she was Jordan's mother. Malcolm never answered directly, and Carrie didn't correct anyone. She didn't feel the need to explain. She was part of their little family, and that felt enough. Carrie and Malcolm's friendship grew deeper. They shared quiet moments in the evenings, watching TV or talking about their days. They never said, "I love you," at first, but their actions showed how much they cared. Carrie felt like she belonged in a way she never had before. Jordan loved having Carrie around. He would run to her when he got home from school, telling her stories about his day. Carrie listened patiently, laughing at his jokes and helping with his homework. Sometimes she read him bedtime stories and tucked him in, just like a mom would. One day, Carrie and Malcolm went to Jordan's preschool for a special event. Carrie sat proudly beside Malcolm as Jordan sang songs and showed his art projects. After the event, other parents came up to Carrie with smiles and kind words. They said she seemed like part of the family, even if she wasn't Jordan's real mom. Carrie felt happy, but also a little unsure. She wondered if Malcolm saw her as more than a friend, or if she was just someone helping out. She didn't want to ask. She was afraid the answer might change everything. Weeks turned into months. Carrie began organizing small birthday parties for Jordan, inviting his friends and neighbors. Malcolm joined in, and the house was filled with laughter and music. These moments felt real and precious, like the family she had always dreamed of. Despite the joy, there were times when Carrie felt invisible. She wasn't Malcolm's wife, and she wasn't Jordan's mother in the eyes of the world. Sometimes, Malcolm would leave decisions to her, but quietly, without saying a word. Carrie learned to live with the uncertainty. One rainy afternoon, Carrie sat with Malcolm and Jordan at the kitchen table. They were eating warm soup and talking about the future. Malcolm said he wanted Jordan to grow up with strong roots and good values. Carrie nodded, feeling the weight of those words. "We're a team," Malcolm said softly. Carrie smiled, but inside she wondered what team really meant. Did it mean forever, or just for now? At night, when Jordan was asleep, Carrie often thought about what life might look like if she stayed. Could she become the mother Jordan needed? Could Malcolm and she build a life together? The questions didn't have easy answers. Still, Carrie chose to stay. She was no longer just passing through. She was a steady presence in Jordan's life and Malcolm's too. Her days were filled with small joys, Jordan's laughter, quiet talks with Malcolm, and a feeling of finally belonging somewhere. For the first time in a long time, Carrie felt hopeful. Maybe this was more than just a place to stay. Maybe this was home. As the years passed, Carrie and Malcolm's life together grew in small but important ways. They never talked much about their relationship, but everyone who knew them could see they were close. Carrie was more than a friend. She was family. Malcolm still didn't ask Carrie to marry him. Sometimes she thought about it, wondering why. Maybe it was because they came from different worlds, or maybe Malcolm had past hurts he never spoke about. Carrie didn't want to push him. She was happy just being there for Jordan and Malcolm. Jordan grew up fast. From a curious toddler, he became a bright and thoughtful boy. Carrie spent many evenings helping him with schoolwork or listening to his dreams about the future. She loved seeing him grow and tried her best to be the steady adult he could trust. The neighborhood welcomed Carrie as part of Malcolm's family. At school events, parents and teachers knew her as Jordan's mom. Sometimes, Carrie felt proud and warm inside, but other times she felt a little unsure. Was she really his mom, or just someone who helped raise him? Malcolm was a quiet man, but he showed his love in many ways. He trusted Carrie with Jordan's care, made plans together for holidays, and included her in family gatherings. Carrie could see that he cared deeply. Still, they never used the words husband or wife. One summer, Malcolm's mother visited from out of town. She was gentle and kind, and she treated Carrie like a daughter. Carrie felt a deep connection with Malcolm's family, and it made her hope for a future with them. But not everything was perfect. Sometimes, Carrie noticed small tensions. Malcolm would get quiet and distant after long days. They didn't talk much about their feelings or fears. Carrie tried to understand him without asking too many questions. Jordan began to ask questions too. As he grew older, he wanted to understand his family better. One afternoon, he asked Carrie why she and Malcolm never got married. Carrie smiled softly, but didn't have a clear answer. "Sometimes families look different," she said, "but we love each other, and that's what matters." Malcolm listened quietly, but didn't add anything. Carrie wondered if he felt the same doubts. She knew that love was not always simple, especially when families didn't fit the usual patterns. Despite the uncertainty, Carrie kept giving her best to Jordan and Malcolm. She planned birthday parties, helped with school projects, and made sure their home was full of warmth and care. Her days were busy, but she loved the life she was building. One night, after Jordan had gone to bed, Carrie and Malcolm sat on the porch. The air was cool, and the stars were bright. Malcolm reached out and took Carrie's hand. "Thank you for staying," he said quietly. Carrie squeezed his hand and smiled. She didn't say it, but she hoped staying was the start of something lasting. She wanted to be more than a helper or a friend. She wanted to be family in every way that mattered. As the years continued, Carrie learned that love did not always need words to be real. It was in the small moments, shared laughter, quiet support, and the feeling of being home. And for now, that was enough. Jordan was now a teenager. He was growing taller every day and starting to think about who he really was. Carrie noticed that he was asking more questions, not just about school or friends, but about his family and where he came from. One afternoon, Jordan sat down with Carrie while she was making dinner. "Why don't you and Dad ever get married?" he asked quietly. Carrie paused, thinking carefully about how to answer. Sometimes adults have reasons we don't always understand, she said softly. But what matters most is that we love each other and take care of you. Jordan nodded, but looked thoughtful. He wanted to know more about his past, his roots, and what it meant to have a family that looked a little different from others. Carrie began to help Jordan learn more about his culture and history. She bought books about African-American heroes and artists. Together, they watched movies about important moments in Black history. Carrie wanted Jordan to feel proud of who he was. Malcolm joined in sometimes, telling stories about his own childhood and the lessons he learned. Carrie saw how much Jordan listened and how he began to understand himself better. But even as Jordan learned and grew, he still struggled with his feelings. He sometimes asked if Carrie was really his mom or just someone filling in. Carrie always told him, "I'm here for you. That's what counts." One weekend, Jordan had a school project about family history. He asked Carrie if she could help. She shared stories about her childhood and the challenges she faced. She told him that families are made by love, not just by blood. Jordan's questions sometimes made Carrie feel uncertain. She wondered if Malcolm shared the same feelings deep down. She didn't want to push him to talk about things he didn't want to say. Malcolm remained quiet about his own past, but Carrie could see that he cared deeply about Jordan and Carrie too. He worked hard to provide for them, and on weekends, he took them to visit parks or museums. One evening, after Jordan went to bed, Carrie and Malcolm talked quietly in the living room. Malcolm said he was proud of Jordan and grateful for Carrie's love and support. Carrie smiled, but wished he would say more about their future. Despite the questions and quiet moments of doubt, Carrie felt hopeful. She saw the family they had built together, even if it was not like others. She believed that love, trust, and care made them strong. Jordan began to open up more, sharing his dreams of becoming a writer or a teacher. Carrie promised to help him in any way she could. She felt proud of the young man he was becoming. As the days passed, Carrie knew that their family would face more challenges. But she also knew that together, they could handle whatever came. The love she felt for Jordan and Malcolm was real. It was not about titles or traditions, but about being there day after day through everything. And that was the kind of family she wanted to be part of, no matter what. Over time, Carrie noticed that Malcolm was changing. He seemed quieter and sometimes distant. He worked longer hours and came home late, often tired and distracted. Carrie tried to talk to him, but he would only smile and say everything was fine. She wanted to believe him, but a small worry grew inside her. Jordan was busy with school and sports. He was becoming more independent, spending more time with friends and less with his parents. Carrie still helped him with homework and cheered for him at games, but she felt the distance growing between them. One evening, after dinner, Carrie sat alone in the living room while Malcolm was out. She looked around the house and thought about how much time she had spent here. 15 years. It was longer than she ever expected to stay. She remembered when she first met Malcolm and Jordan, how easy it was to feel part of their small family. But now, something felt different. She wondered if Malcolm still wanted her there, or if she was just someone he kept around out of habit. Carrie tried to ignore the questions. She focused on Jordan and their routines. She made plans for the upcoming holidays and helped Jordan with college applications. But the feeling inside her did not go away. One rainy night, Malcolm came home later than usual. He was quiet and tired. Carrie asked if everything was okay. He nodded, but didn't say much. She knew something was wrong, but didn't want to push. Days later, Carrie found a small note in Malcolm's jacket pocket. It was a receipt for a bookstore and a name she didn't recognize, Sarah. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but her heart sank. Carrie didn't say anything right away. She waited, hoping Malcolm would tell her about Sarah. But he didn't. The silence made her feel alone in a house that once felt full of love. Jordan noticed the change too. One afternoon, he asked Carrie if she was okay. She smiled and said she was fine, but inside she felt broken. Carrie began to think about what her life meant. Was she truly part of Malcolm and Jordan's family? Or was she just filling a space until something else came along? She wanted to be honest with herself, but the thought of leaving scared her. Atlanta was her home now, and Jordan felt like her son. She wasn't ready to give up on them. Instead, Carrie decided to stay strong. She focused on Jordan's future and on being the mother figure he needed. She reminded herself that love was not always easy, and family sometimes went through hard times. She also knew she deserved honesty and respect. Maybe one day, Malcolm would tell her the truth. Until then, she would keep caring for Jordan and hope for a better tomorrow. As she looked out the window that night, Carrie took a deep breath. She knew life was changing. The next chapter was unknown, but she was ready to face it with courage and heart. One afternoon, Carrie was tidying up Malcolm's coat when she found a small receipt tucked inside a pocket. It was from a bookstore she did not know, dated just a few days ago. The receipt had the name Sarah written on it, and Carrie felt her heart sink. She didn't want to believe Malcolm was hiding something from her. But the note was there, clear and quiet. Carrie tried to stay calm, telling herself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe Sarah was just a friend or a colleague. But deep down, she felt worried. Over the next days, Carrie watched Malcolm more closely. He was more distant than before, often on his phone or stepping outside to take calls. When she asked about his days, he gave short answers and quickly changed the subject. One evening, Carrie found herself at the local bookstore. She wondered if Sarah might be someone Malcolm cared about. She looked at the books on the shelves and thought about how long she had been part of Malcolm's life. 15 years. It was a long time to be invisible. Carrie decided she needed to know the truth. That night, after Jordan had gone to bed, she sat down with Malcolm. She asked him gently if there was someone else in his life. Malcolm looked away for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Her name is Sarah," he said quietly. "We've known each other for a while. It's complicated." Carrie felt a wave of sadness, but she tried to stay calm. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked softly. Malcolm sighed. "I didn't want to hurt you or Jordan. I wasn't sure what I wanted." Carrie's mind raced. All the years she stayed, the moments she shared, the hope she held, it felt fragile now. But she also knew she couldn't control Malcolm's feelings. She could only decide what was best for herself and Jordan. In the days that followed, the house felt different. Malcolm spent more time away, and Carrie focused on Jordan. She wanted to protect him from the pain, but she knew he sensed the change. One afternoon, Jordan asked Carrie directly, "Is Sarah going to take your place?" Carrie looked into his eyes and said, "No one can take your place or mine. But sometimes families change. What matters is love." Jordan nodded slowly, trying to understand. Carrie hugged him tightly. She knew they both needed time to heal and figure things out. Carrie began thinking about the future. She wanted a life where she was respected and valued. Maybe that meant leaving Malcolm's house and starting fresh. The thought was scary, but also freeing. She started making small plans, looking for new work projects and exploring neighborhoods nearby. She told herself that whatever happened, she would keep Jordan's happiness first. One evening, Malcolm came home and found Carrie packing a small bag. She looked at him with calm eyes. "I think it's time for me to move on," she said softly. Malcolm nodded, understanding the choice she made. They said goodbye quietly, without anger or blame. As Carrie closed the door behind her, she felt a mix of sadness and hope. The years with Malcolm and Jordan were part of her story, but now it was time to write a new chapter, one where she could truly be herself. Carrie moved into a small apartment not far from Malcolm's house. It was cozy and quiet, but it felt like a fresh start. She decorated it with pictures of Jordan and small plants by the window. The space was hers now, a place where she could think and breathe. At first, it was hard being away from Malcolm and Jordan. Carrie missed the laughter and the small routines they shared. But she also felt a new kind of freedom. She could make decisions just for herself, and that felt good. Jordan visited often. Sometimes Malcolm brought him, and other times Jordan came on his own. Carrie loved hearing about his school, his friends, and his dreams. She reminded him she was always there for him, no matter where she lived. Malcolm and Carrie kept talking quietly, trying to find a way to be friends for Jordan's sake. It wasn't easy. The years they spent together were filled with memories, some happy, some painful. But they wanted to do what was best for Jordan. One afternoon, Jordan came over with a school project. He needed help with writing an essay about family. Carrie smiled and said, "Families can be many different things, but love is what holds us together." Jordan looked at her, thinking deeply. Carrie started spending more time on her work. She took on new design projects and met people who inspired her. She joined a small book club and even started a blog about life, family, and hope. Writing helped her heal and find her voice. Sometimes, when she was quiet at night, Carrie thought about her years with Malcolm and Jordan. She wondered what might have been if things were different. But she also knew she made the right choice to move on. Malcolm called one evening to talk about Jordan. They shared stories and made plans for the weekend. Carrie felt a small smile grow inside. Even if they were apart, they were still connected by love and respect. Jordan was growing into a strong young man. He told Carrie he wanted to visit college campuses soon and asked for advice. Carrie felt proud and a little emotional. She was grateful to be part of his life. As time passed, Carrie learned that family was not just about living under one roof. It was about being there for each other, even from a distance. It was about understanding, forgiveness, and hope. One day, Carrie received a letter from Malcolm. He wrote that he was sorry for the pain and thanked her for everything she did for Jordan. Carrie felt tears, but also peace. She knew their story wasn't perfect, but it was real. Carrie looked out her window at the city lights. She thought about the future, the new friends she would meet, the new dreams she would chase. She felt ready. Life was changing, but Carrie knew she was strong enough to face whatever came next. And she was not alone. Years passed, and Jordan grew into a confident young man. Carrie watched with pride as he prepared to leave for college. She helped him pack, gave him advice, and reminded him to follow his dreams. On the day Jordan left, Carrie felt a mix of happiness and sadness. She hugged him tightly, promising to always be there no matter what. Jordan smiled and said, "Thank you for everything, Carrie. You've always been like a mom to me." Carrie smiled back, her heart full. She knew those words meant everything. After Jordan left, Carrie had more time to focus on herself. She kept writing her blog and met new friends who supported her dreams. She started volunteering at a local community center, helping kids who needed support, just like Jordan once did. Malcolm and Carrie stayed in touch. They were no longer living together, but they shared a quiet friendship built on respect and years of memories. Sometimes, Malcolm would call just to check in, and they would talk about Jordan and life. One day, Carrie received an invitation to Jordan's college graduation. She felt proud and grateful. She packed her bags and traveled to the ceremony, excited to see Jordan succeed. At the graduation, Carrie sat in the crowd, watching Jordan walk across the stage to receive his diploma. Tears filled her eyes as she clapped the loudest. She thought about the journey they had all been through, the challenges, the love, and the hope. After the ceremony, Jordan hugged Carrie tightly. "You made this possible," he said. "Thank you for never giving up on me." Carrie smiled, feeling a deep warmth inside. "You made this possible, Jordan. I'm so proud of you." Malcolm was there too, standing quietly beside them. He smiled, and Carrie saw the kindness in his eyes. It was a simple moment, but it meant a lot. They were family in their own way. That night, Carrie thought about how far they had come. Life was not always easy, and love didn't always follow the rules. But through it all, they had found something real, a bond that lasted beyond distance and time. Carrie realized that family is about more than just blood or marriage. It's about caring deeply, supporting each other, and being there when it counts. She felt grateful for the years she spent with Malcolm and Jordan. Even the hard times had taught her strength and hope. As Carrie looked out at the stars, she smiled softly. The future was bright and full of possibilities. She knew whatever came next, she would face it with courage and an open heart. And that was the greatest gift of all.